Good afternoon. On behalf of the Massachusetts Breast Cancer Coalition, I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, Secrets of Athletic Goal Achievement. My name is Michelle Dixon, and I am the Program and Development Coordinator for the Mass Breast Cancer Coalition, and I'm pleased that you could join us today. I would like to introduce our speaker, Dr. Kathy Utschneider. Dr. Utschneider is a lead faculty for Boston College Sports Leadership, where she has been teaching for the past 10 years. In 1992, she founded MOVE, a coaching and training practice for both runners and swimmers. In addition to being an accomplished master's athlete herself, Kathy is also the author of 2 books, MOVE, How Women Can Achieve Athletic Goals at Any Age, and Mastering Running. Kathy is a recognized expert in the study of goal achievement, and we are very pleased that she's here today to share her insights with us. Welcome, Kathy.
Michelle, thank you very much, and I want to thank each one of you who is attending this webinar today, and hope to hear any questions you might have, and encourage you to get a piece of paper and pen or whatever you want to write with, and if you have any questions as I'm going along, jot them down and say, let me know what you don't understand, what you'd like to know more about, etc. And I'm very excited to be working with the Breast Cancer Coalition here because for my whole professional life, I have been fascinated by this topic of athletic goal achievement because it feels so central to life itself, and it relates a lot to the challenges in life, to challenges like cancer and other diabetes and other illnesses, but also to the best times in life. So let's get started. So if you have a pen and paper there, even if you have a question on one of the early slides, note it down and we'll cover it. All right, so this is Secrets of Athletic Goal Achievement. Why focus on athletic goals? Well, let's start with a really broad perspective. I don't know about you, but most of us are just, with all the social media we have, living with chaos. We have so many responsibilities as women, for sure. And there's a fabulous book I recommend. My students found it one of their favorite books in one of my last courses. It's called The Organized Mind. And Dan Levitin says that we live in the age, calls it, of information overload. We balance more tasks and information than ever. And I love the phrase, we feel that we're running fast just to stand still. So I'll ask the question again, why focus on athletic goals? Well, they help us think in a positive direction, no matter what life challenges we face. Our best performances are often the result of facing struggles in our lives or struggles of those close to us. It's interesting to note that some of my athletes have run their best events after cancer or after losing a job or a loved one. I ran myself, I was a master's runner, considering myself a former master's runner at this point, but now a master's swimmer. I ran one of my best races about 3 months after my father died, and I actually dedicated the race to him and in my mind, and I've encouraged many others to do the same when they face a challenge. It helps us when we have something not go right in our lives, which all of us have, taking that negative and turning it into a positive, and a very tangible positive, is very powerful. And just as an aside, it's interesting because if you look at the Latin derivation of the word passion, embedded in that meaning, in that word, is struggle. Struggle and passion are sort of linked, just as anxiety and excitement, fear and excitement are also linked, 2 sides of the same coin. Why else go for athletic goals? Because they help us achieve optimal performance by building structure into our busy lives. I do a series on National Public Radio on goal achievement, and I think the phrase that I like to quote myself on, because when I said it, I thought, oh, I have to remember this. Goals force us to think deliberately, to think very carefully about our time and our priorities and our interests. So today we're going to go into some specifics, secrets to achieving athletic goals, which presents a method and thoughts you can implement in achieving your own goals. I'm not trying to plug my book, but I'm trying to educate in saying that if you want more detail on how to achieve athletic goals, you can go to my book, but you can also learn a lot just from this webinar, which is why it's so great. So anyway, this MOVE is a method of goal achievement which is useful for beginners to Olympians. And it's based on 25 years of research, theories of excellence, for example, 25 years of coaching, writing, and my own experience. Some of these secrets, as I call them, they'll sound familiar, and others will be new. So many people today, as I'm sure you know, around you, just look around, so many people are going after athletic goals. What this method does is, it's not that you have to follow it to achieve an athletic goal, obviously, but what it does is it makes achieving your goals more seamless and simpler, more efficient. So secret number one, athletic goals start with fantasizing. They start with dreams. And I emphasize this point, which seems obvious, because often people just take on a goal because other people do it around them. Not that that's bad, but if you really want to get to your best performance, it's good to think about what has meaning for you. What is your vision of yourself? Who would you ideally like to be? And some people say, well, I don't know really what I want to be. And in that case, I say, well, look around you, think about the past. What have some people, who do you admire? What have others accomplished? Think about your childhood. What were you unable to do then that you're able to do now? So what didn't you finish then that you'd like to finish now? You could also pick up books. I was sitting in an airplane recently, and it was JetBlue, and they had all these shorts on, short movies on different athletes, and I watched videos about Usain Bolt, Althea Gibson, one of the first African-American tennis players, and Greg Louganis, and I got inspired by them. So you never know what's going to motivate you. But dreaming is important, and we have to keep dreaming and redreaming again as we age, because you don't want to give up athletic goals. Let's say you've achieved what you wanted to your 30s or 40s or maybe 50s and 60s. If you're in your 70s or 80s, it's not too late. So everyone's life is interrupted over and over again, and dreaming is the start of beginning again. A dream, which is a vision of a meaningful goal, will launch you on a mission that's more important than just an activity. Meaning, being on a mission, having something that has a great deal of meaning for you, is going to help you push on the tough days when you don't think you can go out and do something, but you do it anyway. It's going to add intensity as well as consistency to your training. So begin your dream by writing down a vision statement. It's just a one-sentence statement. I'm sure you know, some of you know about this maybe, maybe not, that reflects how you want to see yourself, even if you don't believe it yet. And I say frame it so you can make it important and put it in a place where you can see and think about it every day. It really works. One of the, if you think, dream it, speak it, write it, believe it. That's a very good sequence to capture the power of having a vision statement which affects your beliefs, your brain. And one vision might be something like, I'm a strong woman who can easily run 6.2 miles, a 10K, even if at this point, you can run a mile or you can't even run. You will be able to. And you put it on your refrigerator, by your bedside table, on your desk, whatever. So moving from dreams to reality, research has shown that too much focus on athletic goals and too little on the rest of life leads to failure. People who achieve athletic goals when they have a balanced perspective on their responsibilities, when they remember the big picture, all their life goals and responsibilities, is essential. In my doctoral research on Masters women runners, the biggest obstacles to achieving athletic goals were not injury, they're not boredom, and they're not the challenge of training or pain, but too many responsibilities. There's also, by the way, been was a very interesting book written by a woman from the University of Pennsylvania on the topic of grit. And what Dr. Duckworth found is the same as the point of this slide, which is that achievement in any area reflects more a mature sense of balance in life over time, and not too singular intensive focus on one or two areas, which lead to imbalance. I can talk about that later if you would like, but let's move on for now. Secret number 2, setting goals is not the first step in goal achievement. What is? It's preparing for goals and planning ahead. And, it's a step that most people forget, or they don't want to do it. They don't want to take the time to do it. It seems unnecessary and, boring or something. It takes discipline to sit down and plan ahead. So all that means is get out your calendar and anticipate, think about everything going on in your life. Don't just think about your training. Think about work, family, community, etc. Write them on your calendar. So if you're thinking about the kayak, swim, run, or aquathlon, I'd be interested to hear which event some of you are thinking about, or whether you're just interested in the topic and maybe you're not participating, but at any rate, prepare for your event by writing down what's going on in your life until the 20th on a calendar. You still have a number of weeks, 4? Yeah. 2, getting everything you need to participate now. So if you're doing get your goggles, your kayak, your sneakers, not your kayak necessarily, but your goggles, your sneakers, your all the small details of what you might need. Think about all the logistics in particular. How are you going to get there? You're going to go with a friend. Get all of that stuff just written down. It takes just a few minutes, but it's planning ahead and it's important. Secret 3, whether you are a beginner or experienced athlete, entering an event with a beginner's mind is essential. I wonder how many of you practice yoga, but sometimes yogis talk about the beginner's mind. It's an attitude of openness, enthusiasm, and most importantly, of no judgment, so you're not concerned with the outcome. I find I have to push people sometimes. They say, well, I want to enter something, but then they say, well, I'm not sure, and well, why aren't you sure? And I say, well, I'm just not sure that I'll be ready. There is something to entering too many events, I think. I think you want to choose your events carefully. But many times people don't participate because they're afraid of how they will do. And in cases like that, where entering is a win, it's really important to push yourself and say, I'm just going to have a beginner's mind. I'm going to go do it, and it's going to be a first time, and I don't know how I'll do, but just entering is a win. And be able to identify the skeptic in yourself that holds you back from doing something challenging. I actually, on Monday, am going to practice what I preach. I'm going to my my second open water swim, but it's a 1.5 miles. I've never swum that far in a race, and I know I won't win, but I'm doing it, and I'm excited to participate. So, and when I think about anything, any area in which I've excelled, I've always started with an experiment. So, I just had this slide in the last webinar. It came out upside down, so I got it right this time, Michelle. Anyway, here is Melitza in the foreground and the white on the left, and she's holding the watch. She just started running, a few weeks before this started. She started running 15 seconds at a time with a 45-second recovery. So she'd run for 45 seconds and she'd walk for 45 seconds and alternate that pattern. And she entered her first 5K and walked half of it. But she said it was fantastic. I'm hooked, she said. 6 months later, she ran a 5K in 25:48, and she had a beginner's mind. Here's one of my elite athletes, Joe Malloy. He's just been nominated as the captain of the U.S. Olympic team, triathlon team. He's headed to Rio, and he said that the beginner's mind helped him prepare, believe it or not, for the Olympics. So that got me thinking, you know, the beginner's mind is a good thing to practice every day. Today I saw one of my athletes, and she said, you know, I had a speed workout to do today. She said, I didn't feel as if I didn't feel terrific about it. I didn't feel really fast. But she said, I kept in mind a beginner's mind, and I thought, I'm going to value effort. So that's what she did, and she did well. Now, by the way, you can read the story interview with Joe Malloy on my website under it's movegoals.com, and it's under the tab of In the News. I've got quite a number in the Olympics, which I'm proud of. Oh, and there I try not to talk much about myself, but I like to focus on my athletes. That was my first open water swim there. It was really fun, a local swim. And if you're nervous because you're experimenting, no, you are normal. This acronym has helped, you know, my athletes more than any other acronym, ETU, embrace the uncomfortable. Many of my athletes say that they say it every day to themselves, and I say it a lot too. It works for many things you don't feel like doing. I use it when I go to the pool. Other people use it before they do anything that's difficult. They say, embrace the uncomfortable, because so often we want to stay away from it. Secret 4, write down your goals where you can see them daily. Don't let an app own your goals. My clients use a Move Goal Pyramid, which, you know, anyone can use, and which you will see in the next slide or so, and put it where they can see it daily. And why a pyramid? Because research shows that we remember images 150% more than we remember just words. Track your daily training in the calendar as well, because we always forget otherwise. So here's a sample Move Goal pyramid. In the very top triangle there, you see the performance goal. It's to run a 10K in less than 50 minutes for this particular one. And then in the bottom stripe, in the widest stripe of the pyramid, is the process goal, the weekly task goal that is the most important. Importance represented by the width of the every time she goes out for a run, drink 64 ounces a day. She's going to stretch for 10 minutes after each run. But you can tailor this to yourself. And, you know, again, this is one of the, I have football players doing this. I have, you know, golfers doing this. And I used to use, in fact, in my book, I have a form with lines. But people like the pyramid better. Secret 5, it doesn't matter where you record your weekly training, but record it somewhere in a Google Doc, Training Peaks, or an old-fashioned calendar, or whatever else you have. make sure your log shows a week at a time. And why a week at a time? Because you want to be able to say, okay, now what happened this week, so that you don't overtrain, in the next week or do too much. So you're moderate. And so it's also good for noting any pains you might have or awarenesses or what contributed to them. The other thing is that your logbook or your record book here, your journal, will become your training Bible for future events, a resource you can refer to regarding what worked and what didn't work. Anyway, I just included this. This is client Rebecca, who's actually she's a doctor at Children's Hospital, which doesn't relate to anything because you get to know her better. This here you see she's written her her notes in more detail, maybe a little more detail than you need, but it's very helpful. She says her left knee, she was having some issues with her left knee. And you can see she says, though I'm aware it's not solid, like it has been over the past few weeks, it isn't painful, and it wasn't limiting at all during or after the run. This review after your event is over is critical for your long-term success. A review many of the coaches and colleges are using the post-goal event analysis. I used to call it a post-goal analysis, but they use it with their athletes. People capture their performance objectively. So questions like, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 representing most and 1 representing least, how would you rate your physical readiness, your mental readiness? Are there particular circumstances related to the day of the event? What were the logistics, weather, heat, humidity, cold, etc.? I understand that for my swim race, it's going to be 100 degrees in North Carolina, and I've never swum in that, and I'm thinking it won't make a difference, but we'll see. When did you start training for this event, and how many weeks of training does that represent? 3, summarize your weekly strength training and stretch routine, including yoga, Pilates, or another class. And then what other life events, work, personal life, etc., have affected, helped, or hindered your training? I had one athlete who was a graduate student, and she had a New England cross-country championship she was in. And the morning of her event, which was taking place at around 11:30, she had worked on her dissertation, and she lost 2 chapters of it and panicked. And unfortunately, she was so panicked for several hours that she did not perform the best race. And those notes helped her the following year when she was wondering what happened in that event that, took me off course there in her event. And here's secret number 7. Finally, no matter what your outcome, celebrate your adventure with friends and family. A celebration reinforces your steps, transforming your self-concept and how you see yourself. And I'm sure, that's a fairly obvious point, but it's one that sometimes people tend to forget, and they will say, well, I'm just moving on to the next thing. Don't. This is one of my favorite graphs, secret number 8, and most important. Remember, it's never too late to be your best. Bill Rogers, I think, wrote in one of his books something that I verified in my research. If you look at here, this diagram shows that people who started young, early starters in their teens, there's a theory called 10 years, 10,000 hours to excellence. And after 10 years, the early starters sort of would, they start to level off a little bit, and they can improve a little bit, but they improve less so relative to how much they improved when they were younger. But if you're a late starter between 30 and 40, or between 50 and 60, after 10 years, given relatively equal amounts of talent, you can catch up to people who were early starters And I have, and there's a fantastic Masters world record holder called Kathy Martin. She started running in her late 30s. She's set so many world records, and she's beaten times of Joan Benoit and others when they were the same age. And she started late, but she had high amount of talent. And so whatever your level of talent, know that, after 10 years, and even, after 5 to 6 years, and that sounds like a long time, but you'll keep improving, you can get closest to your potential. And you can be as good as people who started when they were young. And that's particularly in a sport like running, an endurance sport that doesn't require a lot of skill. The story would, of course, be totally different and probably would not apply in something like skating or gymnastics. But in something like running, even in swimming, in rowing, that absolutely applies. So what are you waiting for? Why put off till tomorrow? Now we have time to hear your questions. Here's one of my groups of runners. They are between early 20s and late 70s. And, they're all cheering each other on. So I want to thank you for listening. And I would be delighted to, meet you over the phone in the webinar and answer any questions. Michelle?
Kathy, that's great. Thank you. In fact, I've got a question for you right off the bat.
Okay.
The first one comes in and says, the question is, do you believe that people that might not have natural, quote-unquote, natural physical fitness can still achieve a big athletic goal as long as they have mental fitness? For example, she says, I run 5Ks, but I can't imagine running a marathon. So how do I get over the hurdle of not believing that I can achieve a marathon?
Absolutely. Talent actually has very little to do with high achievement. So the highest achievement, that is, if you are to be an Olympian, you need talent and hard work. But you can be a Division I college athlete, and you can be an elite athlete without having much talent. The key is picking your sport, number one, and number two, setting very short-term, successive incremental goals. So I understand why the woman who, has run a 5K has a really hard time believing she can run a marathon. What I would tell her is, number one, after she's run a 5K, take it in very small increments. In fact, instead of going from a 5K to a 10K, go from a 5K, find a 4-mile run somewhere. And then, give yourself another 2 months to train for from a 4-mile run to a 5-mile run to a 10K run and so forth. And belief, insofar as believing is concerned, that's really important to ensuring that you'll be able to accomplish what you might not believe now. As I said, the vision statement is very important. But also there's a psychologist out of Stanford University called Dr. Albert Bandura, who's written a book, many books actually, on the concept of self-efficacy. And self-efficacy is the belief, it's a specific kind of self-confidence. It is simply a self-confidence in a specific area. Meaning, if this woman wants to believe that she can, in fact, run a marathon, she wants to mastery experience. So if she can run a 5K, then she can run a 10K. Belief is also, another source of belief is seeing other people like herself who has made the specific achievement, who've done what she's done, people her own age, people who she feels are similar to her. And another is Being surrounded by other people who help her convince herself that she can do it, getting support and getting you don't really believe it, you write it down anyway. In the present, you say, I can run. If she can run a 5K, you say, I can run a 4-miler. So that's sort of a long answer, but that's my answer. Absolutely. You can do anything you want, most anything you want without talent, sure.
Terrific.
Is that clear?
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And in fact, it ties into the next question that came up regarding surrounding. How important do you think it is in terms of once you've set a goal of surrounding yourself with like-minded people in terms of achieving that goal, or are you better to train solo?
That's an excellent question. I'm going to just answer it with a story about my daughter to start with. First of all, it's really important to surround yourself with people you feel comfortable with, but people you also admire. It helps you because you get support from them. Insofar as, and I'll answer, my daughter is a freshman, is going to be a sophomore in college, and she's on her college running team, but she put on the freshman, I don't know whether it's 10 or 15 or whatever, and she's been trying to surround she's getting energy from that fund. In terms of 25 years, I've done many different combinations of coaching. I've coached individuals who have, achieved at the highest level, one-on-one. They come to see me once a week, and it's a combination of therapy most likely, and then once a week training. But that is because there's a lot of organization, there are a lot of priorities, there are a lot of questions people have about the meaning of goals, and they come and they train once a week. I've also coached large clubs of women, and where I just see the women once a week at track practice. And they are running mainly with other people, whereas the people I see once a week on their own are running alone. I've recently started hybrid groups which combine call-ins to me once a week, which are much cheaper than the one-on-one trainings, and then they do meet with a group once a week. And I will tell you that I think that the answer is that it is good to train with others sometimes if you want, as long as they're not competitive with you, as long as you feel supported by them. I would say it's the best combination is what I call my the hybrid model, which is train sometimes with others if you like them, if you feel comfortable with them, if you feel supported by them, but have your own plan always and train on your own sometimes too. That's the answer.
Wonderful, thank you. I've got one more coming in. The question really is, so you've set the goal and you, for whatever reason, you don't reach it. How do you now regroup? And do you let go of the goal, or what's the next step?
Oh, that's a really good question. You don't let go of the goal if it's important to you, no matter what. You realize that, first of all, one of my favorite stories is this. It's a psychologist who's a friend of mine and a very successful psychologist in the Boston area. She tells a story, and I'm answering by analogy. She needed statistics to do well as a to get her to become a psychologist. She took the stats test the first time, and she failed. And she took it the second time, and she failed again. and she took it the third time, and she failed. And she took it fourth time, and she got 100. And she's got one of the best practices in Boston. Never give up on a goal that's meaning for you. Just, realize that, it's like you think about entrepreneurs and CEOs. I mean, many of them have been, what's the sort of the idiom? I'm not sure whether it's really true or not. I'd have to verify this, but what people say is they've been fired seven times before they become a CEO. Absolutely. That's where having a post-goal analysis is very helpful. I would sit down and think about what happened, and if the event is something that they'd like to try again, absolutely. Make a list of what worked and what didn't work. Someone can feel free to call me with a question if they'd like. I'm happy to take any questions. My phone number's on my website. But, there are also many people out there to help, and absolutely, failure is part of success.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Now I've got another question that's come in.
Okay.
A woman writes, I struggle with chronic illness such as lupus and other autoimmune disorders. So, and as a result, struggle with chronic pain and sometimes immobility. So how do you suggest she sets realistic goals when the everyday can be a new challenge, a new battle?
I understand that totally. I'll go back to the point that a number of points. One is, and I'm sorry that she is in pain, and I understand that completely. I respect it. I've worked with people who are in pain 24/7, frankly, and help them set and achieve goals. I would sit down and figure out what kinds of activity are possible at the very smallest level. You want to respect the smallest achievement. I'll tell you this. When I went to the World Championships in Finland, a woman who's worked with me on Move, she's managed the business aspect of my company for 25 years, and she has multiple health issues. She's got a fused ankle, for example. She's in pain all the time, numerous serious physical issues. She's just been in 3-hour surgery today at Mass General. At any rate, I asked her whether she'd like to come to the World Championships with me, and I would invite her to. I had some work to do there, so we were going to go on a business trip. And she decided that since the practice is all about goal achievement, that she would set a goal. At the time she set the goal, I think we went in July, and it was in March or April, she was unable to walk across her living room without pain. She couldn't take 5 steps. And what we did was to break down her goal into very tiny increments, rewarding her. She rewarded herself with echinacea, with baths with Epsom salts. So we listened to her pain, but we managed her goals at very tiny levels, very tiny increments. And actually, she said that the pain felt less as she focused more on, and I've had clients with lupus too, she focused more on the positive, on something physical, but that turned it reinterpreted the meaning of pain into a positive outcome. And when we went to Finland 3 months later, she had achieved her goal, which was to walk 3 miles at a time. So she was able to enjoy the trip. So number one, I would say focus on the very tiny details, and focus on setting goals and respect tiny goals, and micromanage the process, and get a coach, get some support, because you can do it. You would not believe what people can do with major illnesses if they wrap their minds around it in a respectful, reasonable, supportive way.
Wonderful.
That's
That's great advice. That's great advice. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well, these questions are excellent questions. Yeah.
They are. They're very great. Let's see. Do we have any other questions? I'm going to give it a minute. Kathy, I will say I like the fact that you referenced the importance of respecting small goals as well as larger goals. I think often when we say goal achievement, we're always thinking the goal is, something monumental, and monumental means different things to different people.
Exactly, and that's a good point, Michelle. I mean, the smaller the goal, the better. I'm trying to think of a goal one of my clients set this morning. I know. One of my clients has been staying up too late at night. And I said, well, so how late are you up? And she said, well, I really can't get to sleep before 12:30. So instead of saying, well, she's going to set a goal of going to bed at 11, she set a goal of going to bed at 12:15, which sounds like a small increment. And we discussed strategies for her to do that. But it's very important, and it may take us, 2 months to get her. Probably will take us that long to get her to change the habit from going to bed at 12:30 to going to bed at 11 o'clock, and that's her goal. And so she's got little strategies she's going to, actually this is interesting, one of my students, a woman who had a child with multiple physical disabilities and cognitive disabilities. And she was a single mother who'd been left by her husband, and she was left with 2 young children, including this one child with multiple disabilities. And she said something that every single one of the coaches at BC in the class, and there must have been 10 of them, and the athletes, including the Boston College football quarterback, she had the whole class silent, listening to her, what she had to say. She was so wise. And so here this woman, her name was Mary Ellen, and Mary Ellen said she had such a difficult time trying to raise these 2 children, one with multiple, who was going to MGH literally once a week, and then often in the hospital for weeks at a time. And she was alone, and she didn't have much money, and she wanted a career. She said for the last 2 minutes of every day in the evening, she would think only positive thoughts. She would just think, she would actually meditate on only positive thoughts. So I remembered that, and I told my client, why don't you try doing that? And actually, it did work for her for the first week, trying to move her bedtime from, 12:30 to 12:15. So that's my answer there.
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, Kathy, this has been a wonderful session. You've given us all a lot to think about. So I just want to really
about this.
Yeah, it's
a lot of fun.
It's a topic I could talk about for hours myself. So I've enjoyed this, and we're getting a lot of people who are clicking in to say thank you. It's been very inspirational, and we really appreciate your time today. And I just want to say to everyone, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say thanks to everyone for listening, and thank you to everyone for being fans of the same topic I am. And, if you do want to call me ever, my phone number is on my website. So I respect everybody, and every small effort gets tons of respect.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Kathy, and to everyone who dialed in today. We appreciate you taking the time out in the middle of the day to join us. And on behalf of our Executive Director, Cheryl Ostimo, and the Board of Directors for the Massachusetts Breast Cancer Coalition, we thank you, and have a good afternoon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.